Let's look at the hadith.
The hadith says 6, and
Let's
the
look
hadith
at
makes it 9, okay?
Right.
Yeah.
What do just for the record, because there's lots of people, what do the hadith Sahih al-Bukhari say?
The hadith says 6,
Yep.
marriage, 9 consummated.
Right.
However,
So you're saying they're wrong?
the scholars weaken that hadith because the narrator lived in Iraq. And
It's in Sahih al-Bukhari.
Yes, I know, but
Are you saying it's not Sahih anymore?
it's been weakened.
Is it Sahih?
I don't know.
It is Sahih.
But another point I want to make as well is...
Wait, no.
Okay.
We're talking about a Sahih hadith, and I want to have a conversation, not a shouting match. So I do want to.
I'm not shouting.
I want to give you plenty of time to talk, but let me just lay out my case. Your own hadiths say that it is in Sahih al-Bukhari, that, as you've said and as I know, that Aisha was 6 at the consummation and 9 at the marriage. Now, what you're saying is now, in the 21st century, Muslims are weakening that Sahih hadith. Is that your argument?
Some are doing that. Others are saying that at that time they used to count age after puberty. So let's say you hit puberty at 13 and it became 19. That means you're 6 years old.
Okay.
So this is another view that scholars have.
Did Muslims say that before the modern period?
This is what I've heard recent scholars say now. I don't know about scholars from before. I can't speak about classical scholars because I don't know. But the scholars now say that in those times they would also count age after puberty.
Yeah.
So for example, I hit puberty at, let's say, 15.
Yeah.
That means I'm 10 years old.
Can I just say to you that I think that what you've been hoodwinked, bro, by a bunch of lies.
But I've got more points to make.
Wait, but let me just address those points.
Okay.
The reason why I'm saying you're being hoodwinked by a bunch of lies is for 2 reasons principally. Firstly, this argument that you're making is a very modern one, and it is in response to the very powerful criticism that you've just heard today. That the example of your prophet, if those hadiths are true, is that it makes your prophet a paedophile. Right, now just as a question before I make point 2, if those hadiths are true, that they are really, that she was actually 6 as we understand it, and actually 9 as we understand it, would you agree with me that that does make Muhammad a paedophile?
See, I can't answer that question. Why? Because it's like me saying, imagine in Christianity it says to kill everyone. Does that mean you accept it? That kind of is a trap question, so I'm not going to answer that question.
No, it's not a trap question. It's a genuine question. It's a legitimate question.
I'm not going to answer that question.
Okay, so you don't want to condemn your prophet?
I refuse to answer that question.
Okay, he's refusing to condemn his prophet.
No, I refuse to answer the question.
Okay.
Don't put words in my mouth. Now, next point I want to make is...
Wait, I've got point 2.
Can I make the next point?
No. Okay, I'll let you make a point, then I'll make a point. Go on.
Now, another reason why Aisha was not 6
Shall
and
we
9...
step away to somewhere a little quieter?
It's not that loud.
No, let's go into that
Then
corner.
more people will come as well.
No, it's fine. We'll have a quieter, away from all the shouting people.
But then they're going to shout there as well.
No, me and you are conversation in here.
That round of shouting is over.
Right.
No shouting.
What's your name, bro? What, sorry? Borak. Nice name. Where's that from?
Borak.
Borak. No Borats, thank you. No Borats. Right.
That's better. Yes.
Go on. You were going to make a point.
Next point as well is through the age of her sister Esma.
Yeah.
She was 10 years older than Aisha.
Yeah.
And by using events of Esma's lifetime, they calculate that Aisha can't have been 6 or 9.
Yeah.
She was 16, 18, 21, around those ages.
Yeah.
So using calculation, it's impossible for her to be 6 or 9 using the events of her sister.
Can I reply?
Before you reply.
Oh, we're just going to change the batteries.
Action.
Okay. So the second point that I would make, is that these new apologetics that are emerging from within the Muslim community, right? They're doing it because they feel the sting of the criticism that we Christians have made. And that was demonstrated even by you when you couldn't answer a very simple question.
I refused to answer.
Yeah, exactly. You refused to answer a very simple question. And that shows that you feel the sting of the criticism. But the reason why but the thing that they do when they make that apologetic is that they cast Sahih al-Bukhari into doubt. Because what they're saying is Sahih al-Bukhari isn't reliable, that he got his Sahih collection wrong, that this hadith is not Sahih, and then the question arises, what other hadith are not Sahih? What we've got is a convoluted argument made by a Muslim apologist on one side, and the very clear written hadith of Sahih al-Bukhari that Bukhari says is Sahih. Now, all the Muslims in this park, and this is where I'm landing to let you reply, all the Muslims that I've debated in this park, and I've done it for 6 years, none of them have made your argument, except maybe one other person in 6 years. All the big figures, are instead attempting to justify, like that woman did, when she said she wouldn't condemn paedophilia and she would agree with child marriage. All of them are instead defending Muhammad's paedophilia.
Okay, now my point that I want to make is the reason why you say we are apologists is because before this issue didn't come about,
Yeah.
people were making this an issue.
Yeah.
Now because it's become an issue, we need to clarify.
Yes.
That makes sense. So for example, now a lot of things have changed in the 21st century.
Yes.
You've got homosexuality, transsexuality.
We know about childhood
cigarettes,
development.
Cigarettes.
We know about childhood development.
what development?
We know about childhood development.
Childhood development.
Yeah.
We know more stuff. Cryptocurrency, all these kind of things,
Yeah.
all new things. So these kind of stuff need to be clarified now. Okay.
Yes.
Scholars, they need to clarify it before, because it was made an issue. Because the people who are against the Prophet, peace be upon him, they use any excuse to slander him. He's a magician.
Yeah.
All this kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
they never said he's a paedophile. Why?
Yeah.
Why did they not use the argument that he's a paedophile? That means he wasn't a paedophile. Otherwise, they would have used it against
No,
him.
hold on one second. You're totally wrong. Because the understanding that paedophilia exists is something that's only modern. In the past, Christians themselves used to marry children because they didn't understand about childhood development. And this is one of the reasons why Christianity is superior to Islam. And it's one of the reasons that I would invite you to reject that paedophile Muhammad and embrace the teachings of the apostles, because in our religion, we're told to work out our salvation with fear and trembling, which means that as new issues come to our understanding, like for instance, the understanding of childhood development, we then think, what does our faith mean given this new information? And that's why Christians, even at the 5th century, had raised the age at which children could consent. So that's 2 centuries before Islam. And all the way through Christian history, we have been raising the age of consent. And everywhere around the world, people are raising the age of consent. But as a Muslim, you're committed to the example of Muhammad, because he is the perfect human being, which means that you have 2 options when you're confronted with a Sahih Hadith about him marrying a 6-year-old and having sex with a 9-year-old, which according to that Hadith he was.
According to the commentary.
No, a modern commentary, not past commentary.
Yeah, but it wasn't made an issue before, so now the scholars.
So now the scholars are rewriting the
Not
tradition.
rewriting.
They're rewriting the
They're
tradition.
not rewriting, they're researching the
Yeah.
sources, because they have to clarify it.
Yeah.
And another point that I want to make as well is, in Islam, we don't need to give an age of consent, because that's what's subjective. So for example, Japan is a different age, America's a different age, here's a different age.
Yeah.
Okay, so for example, in America, it's 18, isn't it?
Yeah.
Here it's 16.
In most
so
states.
Here, if a 16-year-old has sex, that's pedophilia according to the Americans.
Yeah.
But it's not for us. In Islam, it says mental maturity and physical maturity, whether that's at 15, 18, 20, 21.
A 6-year-old is never mentally
Exactly,
mature.
which is why she
There you
wasn't
go.
6.
Did you hear that? Exactly.
Which is
So
why
in his
she was
heart,
not
he is
6.
condemning Muhammad.
Yeah, but no, but he never married a 6-year-old, so I'm not agreeing that he
You've
did.
got no evidence that
I
he
just
didn't.
told you the evidence.
You've got an argument.
Yeah, that's-
An argument based on a convoluted massaging of the text. Now, let me just say something. In terms of Islamic history, right, for those of us that bother to study it, what we know about the hadith collections and about hadith sciences is that they are consistently massaged and adapted from age to age. So when the Abbasids overthrew the Umayyads, there was an explosion, a plethora of creating hadiths to support one position over another. Between the Shia and the Sunni, a plethora of hadiths to back one position over other. In terms of what hadiths are considered sahih and not sahih, we can see that the early Muslims rejected the traditions about what happened to Muhammad's body after death because of Christian criticisms about those traditions, and they were subjected as being unreliable, right? And that's what Muslims are doing today. Because of Christian criticisms, they are trying to now downplay a very clear hadith that says Muhammad married a 6-year-old and had sex with a 9-year-old. And they're trying to downplay it, even though for 1400 years it's been sahih, they're now trying to say it wasn't, just like in the 7th century.
You need to clarify it back then.
Just like in the 7th century, Christians criticised the early traditions of what happened to Muhammad's body because it was eaten by a dog and it became bloated and they left it in a house for 3 days. Those are all sort of pushed down to the bottom of the hadith reliability chain because they felt the criticism of the early Christians in the 7th century. You know, so all the way through Islamic history, you have this invention of hadiths and this massaging of which hadiths you bring forward to suit whichever party is trying to gain dominance within the ummah. You know that Sahih al-Bukhari wasn't even... Bukhari was condemned as a deviant in his own lifetime. Do you know that?
The thing is, a lot of scholars that we had before, like Ibn Taymiyyah, things like Abu Hanifa, they were condemned at the time, but later were accepted. Why? Because there was a lot of politics going on.
Yes.
Because we as humankind...
that's exactly what I just said.
We as humankind can fall for our desires. We can become corrupt. So over money, over power, over women, whatever it is. Okay. So yes, some Muslim leaders were corrupt as well, but the scholars at those times, they were against those leaders. Hence why they were, slandered and thrown into prison. Okay. Do you get my point?
Yes.
Okay. So when you're a leader of a Muslim empire, you're more bound to be corrupted because you've got power. Okay, so that's why the scholars were deemed at that time maybe deviant, even though they weren't. And later on, just like, for example, how Van Gogh, for example, at his time, he wasn't seen as a nice painter, and now everyone loves his painting.
Well, I still think he's lousy.
For example, do you get my point?
I still think he's rubbish.
I'm not into paintings, but I'm just giving you that as an example.
Yeah, my point to you is that, and as you've just demonstrated, there's two things that when you replay this video, you're going to hear back. One is you did condemn child marriage.
Of course, which didn't exist in our religion.
Do you condemn child marriage?
Of course.
Do you condemn paedophilia?
Of course.
What is paedophilia?
Paedophilia is marrying a person who has not reached mental or physical maturity.
Okay, right. And we both agree 6-year-olds don't have mental maturity.
99% of the time, yes.
And the 9-year-olds don't have physical maturity?
Probably not.
Can I just say it's 100% of the time? It's not 99.9%. It's 100% of the time. Human beings are exactly the same today as they were 1400 years ago. It is a total myth amongst Muslims that people mature differently in hot countries. It's total rubbish. It's an absolute lie.
Maturity can also depend as well in society. So, for example, in let's say Syria, you've got 6-year-old kids looking after whole families, whereas say a 6-year-old kid won't even have to go to the toilet properly. Right,
hold on. So mental maturity depends upon brain function, and brain function depends upon actual brain matter. And the frontal lobe is responsible for your moral judgments. These don't mature until well into puberty. So in other words, if you haven't had puberty, you don't have the frontal lobes for moral decisions. Secondly. So that means Aisha could never be mature enough to consent to marriage at 6, assuming that she was 6. Right, which is what your apologists claim, but your hadiths say otherwise. Now, right, the other thing is, those frontal lobes develop late into mid-maturity. They're not there just because you bleed. They're there years later. You bleed first, and then the frontal lobes develop, and that's why every society in the world is raising the age of consent, because as we come to this realization, we realize that just because someone bleeds, they're not ready to breed.